It's Sunday night. Holy cow, guys. Danny Williamson, Mary Chubinko, and David Weymouth. Yes. Yes, from Crunchy. And I am so excited tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The second you get logged on, I need you to hit your heart buttons, hit your like buttons, tell us where you're from. Let me tell you something. Do you know what's in your skincare? Do you know what's in your makeup? Actually, do you know what's in anything that you're using? You are getting ready to have your mind blown tonight by one of the best in the industry. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him while you guys are logging on. I need you to share this instantly with your people. Get a notebook and take notes. Do whatever you need to do to keep the kids quiet. Put them wherever you need to put them, because you're gonna have your mind blown tonight. All right. Let me tell you about David. He's the head of product and supply chain for Crunchy. All right. He's a professional with over 26 years of experience with a brilliant ingredient mind, as you are actually going to get a glimpse of tonight, because I listened to a lot of videos with him today and I was blown away by his expertise. He has years of formulation and education that he has brought to the corporate team at Crunchy. He also has an extensive knowledge in the essential oil industry, and he's committed to innovating new products for Crunchy, as well as perfecting and fine-tuning products Crunchy already has. He also is the father of, I think, 3 daughters. Is that correct?
That is correct. 3 girls.
Do you have a grandchild?
I have 2 grandchildren and 1 on the way.
Get out of here. 3 daughters, 3 grandchildren. I'm assuming a wife as well. I don't know.
Beautiful.
31 years. Yep.
She's stunning.
Oh my gosh. So this man, I mean, can you imagine someone who has a better interest in this than someone like him, who has like a whole passel of women in his tribe over there that he's got to keep healthy and safe. So David, I am thrilled to death. And guys, you all know Mary Chubinko. She is our hometown local guru on all things toxic and toxins. And I love her. And she's here with me tonight. And I am so excited. We're sitting in my living room. So let's do it.
Danny and I think, are both fangirls at this point. We're like sitting here. When I hear Dave, look at David. Are your cheeks red yet, David?
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
A single brother like him who's interested in all of this, because, you know, that's around 50-ish or so. I mean, I'd probably go to 45, but that would be really young for me. But anyway. Oh, well, David. Okay. Mary, what are we talking about tonight?
So I want to just share that for those who know me, I am really hard to please. And I absolutely loved hearing one of our founders, Melanie, speak to ingredients. That speaks to my soul. I'm very cynical and I'm very critical about the back of bottles. And Melanie was just like, hearing her was just music to my ears. And then David came along, and David and Melanie are just like the perfect combination. They complement each other in their education. And so when I heard David speak, it was like, you have to share with Danny's community, because Danny's community they are elevated in their education. They want to know the tough stuff. They want to know the deep stuff. And so that's what we're going to dive in today. And one of the things that I really liked when I heard David speak, and we discussed what we were going to talk about today, was related to some of the 101 label reading things to look for, like, as far as there's like 6, I think, things you look for on the back of the label that you're going to share with us. And we'll see how quickly we can get to more education. But that's where we're going to start today. Awesome. Take it away, David.
Well, it's first and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for the invite. I appreciate the vote of confidence that I can pull something off here that's meaningful for your group. But I think it's lots of great things are happening in the industry. There's a lot of change in our country, and a lot of that is linked directly to the things like Not So Pretty and that HBO miniseries that's out, that's really highlighting what's in your cosmetics, what's in your personal care products. What are these things that we've been exposing ourselves to sort of just trusting that no one would put something harmful in, the products that we use. And the reality is that it's been 80 years since the government has regulated anything from a cosmetics perspective. 80 years since they've touched something. That's pretty crazy when you think about what we've learned in terms of toxicology in the last 80 years. There is a lot that has changed from a science perspective, and I don't know if the government just expects that everybody is going to follow the rules and play nice or something, or take and apply all of that learning to what they're doing. But it's not. That isn't the economical way of doing things. And the hard way of doing things is to, educate yourself and be very cognizant about what are in your products. And as a result, Americans in general, and this is a beautiful thing, but we're learning to read labels. We're learning to look at inky declarations that are on the back of products. Now, I think the part that is still a little bit scary is that as I look at inky labels, I still wonder whether half of them are even accurate. Literally. Go ahead. Question.
What is inky? Tell my tribe what is inky, because I was wrong.
Great question. So it's an ingredient declaration that it's required to be made by the distributor or manufacturer of a product. So it is that convoluted mess of information that you will see typically in very, very fine print on the back of a box that has a lot of chemical looking names on it that you're sort of wondering, well, what is that? Almost always starts with water. So if you see something that says water, you're usually in the right place. You found the inky on the box. That is basically the ingredient declaration that is there. Now, different regions of the world, they have different requirements about what's on an inky. For example, the US has the most basic regulation as it pertains to what is on an inky, and the European Union has a very detailed requirement as to what goes on that same inky. And they want to know, like, they require you to post allergens, and in some cases even the percentage of that allergen that might be found within that product. And so Europe to US, not the same. And the US, of course, is lagging behind the rest of the world as it pertains to, what we opt to disclose and the level at which we disclose it. Now, that isn't true of everywhere. California does have some laws that are going into place that are going to change that for California, which means that most other products being sold in the US will end up having to catch up, to California, because like anyone else, we Crunchy sell into California. So we'll be, showing what will essentially be almost like a European Union inky going forward. For now, we comply with the US inky so as to not confuse consumers, and because we don't sell anywhere else besides the US. We just haven't expanded beyond the US market at this point in time. So
thank you for that.
A little bit of background on inkies. But inkies are supposed to be documented with the very first ingredient being the one that is used in the greatest percentage in the formula by weight. So when it says water, that's basically saying that is the first and foremost ingredient in a product. That isn't always a bad thing. Water should not be thought of as a filler. Water is actually, generally speaking, a very important component of a skincare formulation because your skin requires a certain amount of water. And when you mix an oil and you want that oil to be absorbed into the skin, oil is naturally not going to do that. In most cases, it's going to want to sit on the skin. And so you need some kind of carrying mechanism to help it absorb, and water can play some of that role, in helping things to be absorbed. And moisture, the only way to get moisture onto your skin is with water. Water is moisture. It is the definition of what a moisturizer is. And so a water-free moisturizer let's just say it has a very hard or challenging task ahead of it. So it is an important component in the skincare. And so don't be surprised when you see that. What is surprising to a lot of people when they're looking at an inky, and this is one of the very first things that I look for, is, okay, you've got water in the formula. What's your preservative? What preservative subsystem are you using? Are you using a paraben, which is known to be, toxic and not good for your body and not good for anybody? It doesn't matter if you're young or old, it's just not good for you. So parabens used to be a dominant form of preservative within formulations around the world. And now things have shifted, and there's lots of different viewpoints on what preservatives are safe and what preservatives are not safe. And thankfully, there's a lot of science to start supporting, those findings. And just because something is acceptable in food in one region of the world doesn't mean it's acceptable on your skin in any region, technically, no matter where you live. So there's things that you have to know to look for. And the approach that Crunchy has taken, and I really can't take any credit for this whatsoever, because as Mary mentioned earlier, Melanie sort of created and laid this foundation and groundwork of science. We are going to look at what the science says. And
yes.
What's interesting is that science can also sometimes be misleading from the perspective that there is such a thing as sloppy science, and there is science that has not been validated by a secondary source. And that is what I just call preliminary science. Preliminary being, okay, somebody's done a study, but now let's back it up. Let's see if somebody else can support what they've found and make that, repeatable science. That's where things start to really make sense. And the good news is that Melanie has done such a huge amount of groundwork there. I found that I didn't really bring anything to the table as it pertained to what to exclude from a formulation perspective. What I was able to bring to the table, and this was very little compared to what she has brought to the table, was that there are certain ingredients that can say one thing in terms of what's shipped to you, but can test out as something other than what they say they are. And yes, you're like, wait a second, what?
What does that even mean? What was?
So it's a fascinating issue within the industry, but it is a very real issue. And it's one that I learned working for another company. That company was Plant Therapy. And Plant Therapy is a phenomenal e-commerce brand that provides essential oils. Love what they do. And one of the reasons that I love what they do is because they test everything that comes in the door. And out of everything that they test, 70% of it fails as adulterated. 70% of it is adulterated. They go to buy grapeseed oil, 70% of it gets taken off the slate as even purchasable because it is not what it says it is. It is not grapeseed oil. It is a little bit of grapeseed oil and maybe a little bit of vegetable oil and a little bit of canola and whatever they feel like mixing into it. And there are plenty of companies out there that are basically taking a pure product straight from the source, and they cut it and adulterate that product and turn around and label it as something else.
Wow.
And don't disclose that. And so sadly, it's actually required some legislation to be proposed, and it's proposed right now and being reviewed right now, that is going to force companies to disclose what they are doing if they are modifying, treating, or changing ingredients. And that would be a huge thing for companies like us, because today that burden is entirely upon us as a company to pay for that testing to be done, to even question that something could happen. And so we have to pay for that testing, and it is crazy. It is just it's sort of a baffling concept that you could. It's like going to buy gas and discovering that you have in fact bought gas that's been watered down with water, which is of course bad for an engine, or and it's a terrible analogy because I should be talking about electricity or something, but I don't know how you corrupt electricity or fake it, right? So I don't know a great analogy for that one, but or going to the store to buy pure distilled water only to find out that it's came from somebody's bathtub faucet or something like that.
Well, that's exactly right. And I hate to interrupt you here, but in the supplement business that I'm in, I'm a nurse practitioner, but I also own a supplement store. But I don't know, it's probably been a year and a half ago, the FDA came in and literally wiped off shelves at GNC, Target, Walgreens, CVS, Amazon. Companies selling fake supplements, fake products. What's it say? I'm just making something up. I don't know. It says St. John's wort, but it's not St. John's wort that's in it, or it's very little St. John's wort. Metagenics, one of our big companies, they shut down 10,000 companies selling fake Metagenic supplements on Amazon probably 4 or 5 years ago. It's unbelievable, and people just buy whatever is the cheapest. Yeah. But also, on Amazon, they'll just click, 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 and, don't ever buy your makeup off of there. Don't ever buy your supplements off of there.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down. But I mean, yes, but I didn't really know this about the skincare industry. Interesting. Okay, keep talking. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but to further expand upon what you said, which and it is fascinating because it really does cross a lot of different industries. The tragedy is that we don't have a choice but to pass some of those costs along to the consumer because there's no other way to do it without, we have to fund it somehow, right? And so it's built into the cost of the product. And thankfully, it's not like a massive component of the product, but the reality is that it's much more than what it should otherwise be. And the consumer really shouldn't have to worry about it any more than we have to worry about it as a brand. But the reality is that I don't know of any other brand that actually goes out and tests their essential oils before they put them into their product to validate that they are what they say they are. We have to do the same thing with our, what we call carrier oils. They're not really carrier oils because we're not using them as such. But if you look at our little super serum, we did the exact same thing there to ensure that that product is in fact exactly what it says it is on that label. And it's one of those things which is unfortunately easy to fake. And here's some insight on the Amazon thing. Half those companies that got shut down, they just pop up with a new name. All they do is change their name, change their business address, and they're selling a relabeled product, the same thing all over again. And there's no penalty. There's no, the only price that they pay is, we lost our reviews for this product under this brand name. So now we start from scratch and try and accomplish the same thing.
That's right. They spent $40,000 ordering their own products. This is Metagenics supplements. $40,000 buying their own products on Amazon. Fake products, expired products, products in their bottles, but not their products. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, you can't trust one thing, in my opinion. Buy your toilet paper, buy my book that I wrote, buy Wild and Well off of Amazon. That's fine. I'd prefer you go buy it from a regular, a local bookstore personally, but buy that. But don't ever buy anything you're going to ingest ever or put on your body from Amazon. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. So
it's sad that you have to be careful, but you know what? The consumer isn't the only one that has to be careful. It's brands just like Crunchy that actually have to do homework on the suppliers that they're working with to sort of keep them honest or to make them step up their game. In a lot of cases, most of the suppliers that we're working with don't even know that there's an issue with adulteration. And you have to point that out. You have to say, hey, guys, this is a problem in the industry. You need to know that lowest bid that you're, where you're basically saying, 5 companies, send us your lowest price per pound on this particular ingredient. It's like, are you really sure you're going to end up getting the ingredient that you think you're getting? Because the sad reality is in most cases, they're not aware of that. There are ways of testing that. Most of them involve GC mass spectrometers, GCMS testing. It's one of the only ways to drill down to it. Fortunately, now they're developing ISO standards, which are internationally recognized standards of acceptability for a specific type of ingredient. And it's pretty incredible because even to your point, like with the Metagenics, it wouldn't surprise me if someday there's a Crunchy knockoff that is being sold on Amazon with our branded, what looks to be our branded bottles, but is in fact some other companies are trying to take advantage of the reputation that we've built for ourselves relative to that due diligence and just knock something off and try and pass it off as ours. Those kinds of things sadly happen to a lot of companies
all day, every day, 365 days a year. It's maddening to me.
It is a maddening thing. So that's the other thing that I tend to talk about from an ingredient perspective is do your homework. When you have a question, pop it into EWG, pop it into Google that ingredient and just put the word skincare next to it and look at what the rating is that it comes back with. It's not always going to be perfectly accurate. The only reason I say that is because EWG is basically going to say, well, if you're not an EWG verified product, then we don't care about what percentage you're using that ingredient at. And there's some little games that are a little bit hokey with EWG and getting a fully verified product that I'm not a huge fan of because it's almost like you're paying to play in a sense.
Right.
But you can still get some sound, solid links to what I would consider to be reasonable science. And then you can validate that science. You can look at that science and go, okay, well, are they duplicating somebody else's study? And if they are, and it has been repeated, then you can start to feel like, okay, there's some good I can have good confidence that, yes, there's evidence that this is bioaccumulative in the environment, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So I'm not going to buy that ingredient or a product with that ingredient in it. And so love it or hate it, EWG adds some value and can at least function as a great resource for learning about individual specific ingredients that you either would or would not want to have in a formula. And just because something has a long, complex, complicated name does not necessarily mean it is synthetically derived or bad for you.
Okay.
Some of the more complicated, let me back up just a little bit and give you an example. If you look at coconut oil, which is in general a very natural product, tends to be very good for us, whether we're ingesting it or in some way or another, there's safe uses of coconut oil all over the place. Right. There are also a lot of fractions of coconut oil that have very complicated names that are still a perfectly pure component of that coconut oil with 90% of the rest of the coconut oil filtered out. So there's this one little segment of the coconut oil. If you look at it as a pie chart or a pie, and the whole thing is your coconut oil as a whole, unfiltered, and then you cut that in half, and then you cut that half down into bunches of little slivers, there's a piece of that coconut oil that might serve a very specific function within skincare that is actually very useful, very beneficial, and needed within a formula to make that formula efficacious or beneficial to your skin. And it may have a very complicated looking name, but in fact, it's just a fragment of pure coconut oil. And it can, in fact, even be organically derived and perfectly clean and perfectly safe, either for ingestion or use on your skin, or, either one. And so don't let those scary names worry you. If you want to have a fun experiment with inky nomenclature, which is naming, like vitamin C as an ingredient within skincare, wonderful ingredient, right? Most of it is not naturally derived. Some of it is, but most of it is not. Most of it is synthetically manufactured.
That's right.
But it still is a wonderful active ingredient for your skin as an antioxidant, in the same way that it is a wonderful ingredient to be ingesting, on a daily basis in, a controlled manner, obviously, for the sake of your digestive tract.
That's right.
But yes, but what's interesting about vitamin C is you can have 10 different legitimate inky names for vitamin C. Tetrahexadecyl ascorbate, L-ascorbic acid, all these different names. The list just goes on and on and on. And some of them aren't even vitamin C until they're put onto your skin, and your skin actually converts it into vitamin C. And so it's just fascinating what these different ingredient types are and what they're capable of doing. And it's so helpful to just educate yourself with each and every ingredient. And can it take a long time? Yes. In fact, my eyes are not what they used to be. And so what do I have to, I literally have to take my iPhone and I put the 2x magnification lens on it. I snap a picture so that I can magnify it. And then I read, then I start reading the fine print. And to this day, my daughters still on a regular basis are like, Dad, is this product safe? And I said, well, if it was just a crunchy product that you were looking at, you wouldn't have to be asking me this question. We have a little bit of conversation there, because there's almost nothing that they need that we don't manufacture that is in fact perfectly safe for use. And that's sort of helpful. But at the same time, it's fun because it means I continue to educate my daughters as to what not to use, and what to continue to look for, because there are lots of little things to look for relative to, what can be beneficial and what can be not so beneficial, from an ingredient perspective on your skin.
Yes. Good. So what else do you look for on the back of an ingredient bottle? What are some of your other things that you try to check out? Like, what about a large ingredient list?
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. That is always an interesting thing. There's two trains of thoughts on this, and I can't say that my train of thought is totally the only way. I'm not going to pretend that that's the case, because I've actually used some formulas, and like any other company that's doing what we do, we do try and look at our competition, and we do try and evaluate, okay, what makes this product special? Why are they successful with this product? And is there a way that we could do it better? And in some cases, I'll look at an ingredient list and go, that is a really long list of ingredients. And I can justify that in certain products. In certain products, that makes sense. In something like our Golden Light peptide, multi-peptide serum, all I would want to see is a list of the peptides that are in that formula for the most part. You're going to see some water, you're going to see a preservative, and then you should see sort of a nice laundry list of peptides that are in that formula. But it wouldn't necessarily make sense to sort of throw the rest of the kitchen sink in there unless you had good evidence that the rest of those ingredients were going to maintain efficacy over time and not necessarily interact negatively with other ingredients. One of the things you have to be very careful of or cognizant of, and this is really true of sunscreens in particular, are you forming benzene ring chains with the different ingredients that you're adding into that? Because benzene ring chains are really bad for your skin. They're carcinogenic, to us as humans. And so you have to look at that laundry list of ingredients and go, well, wait a second. If you have this and this, you've now got those two ingredients in combination, they become a formaldehyde donor. That's not to say that they're actual formaldehyde, but they have the ability over time to convert into a type of formaldehyde or a formaldehyde donor. And those are things you just have to look for. So I always look for aldehyde on the end of any ingredient name, just to see how many aldehydes do I have within there, and are any of those aldehydes capable of combining into a form of formaldehyde over time. Doesn't necessarily mean it happens the moment it's mixed, but it can happen with heat and it can happen with time. Heat and time are the basic enemies of almost all personal care or color cosmetic products. If you have really good products, most of them are somewhere on that unit cart, and they're going to recommend you store it in a cool, dry place. And there's good logic for that. We actually have fully temperature controlled warehouses for all of our products. And so all of our products are designed to ultimately not undergo, the typical breakdown you would see from a lot of products that sit in a 112-degree warehouse.
Yes.
Arizona or whatever.
I'm so glad to hear you say this. So important. And people don't think about this. Like with fish oil, I tell people you would never buy fish oil or D3 or vitamin A or vitamin E or vitamin K, anything that may be liquid for sure, or D from a big box place like Costco, Walmart, Sam's, Target, because they're going to get hot and cold and get rancid on those docks out there. And people do not understand there's no temperature control. I am so glad to hear you mention that. Say that one more time so people can hear that.
So
Roxanne, post that up here, please.
And this is definitely true of more than just personal care and color cosmetic products. To your point,
You bet.
supplements are absolutely part of this, and even most food products. But
Anything. Yes.
heat and time are the enemies of good, viable, functional skincare. It's interesting because we will put a PAO, which is a period after opening, on our product that is in fact well short of the product expiry. And the reason that we do that is because we make certain assumptions that most people, the average consumer, probably just leaves that on their counter and doesn't necessarily put it back in a drawer. And so the last thing we want to do is pretend that that product is still fully efficacious and delivering the exact same punch and dosage that you would expect on the day you opened it than you would 6 months later, based on how average consumers take care of those products. And so we sort of work with what I call the lowest common denominator. And that's just sort of making the assumption, you know what, we have a job to do to educate people to take better care of their products. I mean, you actually see mini fridges that are now made for bathrooms, literally.
Yes.
Tiny little refrigerators for products. And it's interesting because just as I said, you've got to look for product, what's the preservative being used? You also have to look for what happens when there isn't a preservative in a formula. What does that actually mean about the formula? If there's no preservative whatsoever, then how long does it remain safe, particularly from that heat and time component and the fact that they've opened it and they've exposed it to oxygen? Oxygen does one thing to products. It oxidizes. It oxidizes everything it touches.
Yes.
And oxidization either has the ability to turn something rancid that was not otherwise rancid before, or to break down ingredients that are active and functionally viable. And most of us have seen this with, like, say, a vitamin B pill or something that's a pressed capsule that you leave out. If you leave that out, it will go from like neon orange to looking almost brown. That's oxidization. It's a simple, like, I guess, example of what oxidization looks like that most people have seen before. The same thing actually occurs with products, and it's something that we look for as we develop products. We want to understand, okay, yeah, we're going to have to ship our product. Do we know what the temperature of every individual truck is going to be? We don't. And so we have to sort of factor those things in and go, you know what, it could freeze in the winter, so we have to run freeze thaw tests. It could get hot in the summer, and we want to make sure that whatever consumers are getting is the best quality and still has those active ingredients. And it means that I can't use just any vitamin C that I want to in a formula. I have to really look at a vitamin C that has been proven scientifically. Again, we come back to the science. Prove to me with science that this product can withstand heat, and show me what the test results are, and let me see that. And if I know that that's the case, and I can see that it's not oxidizing and that it's maintaining efficacy over an extended period of time with minimal preservative, then I know I found the kind of vitamin C that we would want to use in a formula at Crunchy. And so that's the kind of diligence that goes into, like, everything that we do and everything that we think about. It takes a long time to develop a good product, and you have to test it. And ironically enough, so much of what we do, we get to this point where we think we're ready, and then we get to that final test where we're looking at, okay, is everything still handling the heat the way we want it to handle heat? Because we want the shelf life on this to be a full 2 years, with consumers not having to worry about it, and knowing that the product that they're going to buy still works, still does exactly what it should, still smells right, everything. And then it fails, and you're just like, oh, this is killing me. So we start over, because that's all you can do. You have to start over. You have to we accept roughly that we're going to get somewhere between 50 and 60% right within the first 3 tries. 3 tries, not the first try, the first 3 tries. And so a lot of what we do takes 9 to 12 months to develop, and then we start over because we didn't get it where we wanted it to be. And that's the kind of due diligence that goes into making good products, in my mind. It's just part of the cost of making it happen.
I think that, I would like to have a series with David at this point, but there's a couple of things that I've heard you talk about that I think the community would like to share. I think women who are watching this feel the passion and understand the complexity of manufacturing. When we're concerned about having an expiration date that is, underreported, because we want to make sure the clients are safe, making sure it's stored properly, that all comes into play. Every single detail Crunchy considers, and they're passionate about it, even when it costs them extra money to start all over again after a 9-month investment. But you spoke to the fact that companies don't necessarily, in America, if they're smaller, have to report ingredients below 1%. And to connect to that, one of the reasons why we work with a lot of international partners, I would love for you to kind of speak to that subject.
Great, and I definitely can. I would say that most companies, I don't know of many organizations out there that would not want to be open, honest, and candid about everything that they're doing. But you work with a new startup manufacturer, and a lot of times that manufacturer doesn't understand what their legal responsibility is in the process. And in my career, I've actually learned a lot from really big manufacturers that know what their legal obligation is. And I've had to educate really small manufacturers to help them understand, hey, guess what? When we put this information on a unit carton, and I'm just going to hold this up as an example. It's not even a Crunchy product. It's a benchmark that we are, been comparing to see, what we do and don't like about it. But when they put this on a carton, whose responsibility do you think that is in the end? Do you think it's Crunchy's responsibility to make sure that that's perfectly accurate? Or do you think it's the person that the lab that we have worked with to develop that product who is then manufacturing that product? If you had to guess, who do you think is legally responsible? And I should have given you guys the answer to this question before I put you on the spot, but I didn't, and I apologize.
Well, I know the answer, but I would assume it's Crunchy. I would assume it's Crunchy.
That would be the assumption. And the reality is that it is a shared liability between both organizations, and the manufacturers frequently don't know this. And so guess what happens when somebody makes a claim that their product is going to cure cancer, and they stick that right on the box, and the manufacturer of that product, because we don't manufacture our own products. We don't have the vats. Manufacturing is not our core competency. Our core competency is the development and the testing of those products and the distribution of them. Finding people like you, Mary, and Roxanne and others that are on this call whose names I recognize, that's our core competency, is working with the right people and finding the right partners who understand what we're trying to accomplish. That doesn't mean, though, that we're always on the same page, because we now say with globally sourced ingredients on our products, made in the USA with globally sourced ingredients. We didn't used to make that clarification, but we had a manufacturing partner that sort of said, you know what, a bunch of these ingredients are coming from Europe, and as such, we probably ought to clarify, legally speaking, from an FTC perspective. That's the Federal
Trade Commission.
Trade Commission. Thank you. I'm so used to saying FDA that I always want to default to the Federal Drug Administration. But anyway, or Food and Drug Administration that I get mixed up with. Anyway, the FTC actually is requiring that now of companies. Most companies don't know that. Most manufacturers don't know that. And so what does it still say? It says made in the USA, or it says made in wherever. But the reality is that it's a global industry that is supplying ingredients. Now, what do we have to do about that as a brand? Well, where do I not trust? Sadly, where do I not trust ingredients to come from? I want to make sure that if we're using a palm oil or a coconut oil or some form of ingredient that I know can sometimes come out of the Asian market, I don't want my product coming out of Asia. I just don't. And the reason for that is I don't trust the ingredient declaration in that case to be unadulterated. Or if it's an ingredient that I know was processed chemically, and this is an ingredient that we would use anyway, but I did used to use PEGs at another brand because that was the only thing we could afford to use, and it wasn't clean enough for me, and it eventually helped me to find Crunchy, which is a great thing. But ultimately, PEGs coming out of China are almost always going to have 1,4-dioxane in them. That's a toxic ingredient. Do they have to add that to the label? No, they do not. They simply call it, Sterith 10 or PEG 100 or whatever the ingredient is, but they are not required to call out the fact that it may contain a certain percentage of 1,4-dioxane, which is carcinogenic. You absolutely do not want that product on your skin. And so it means that you have to understand the whole supply chain. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not just the head of product innovation at Crunchy. I'm also the head of supply chain, because supply chain plays a critical role in this beginning to end product. It's like with food. You talk about fork to farm or farm to fork, right? We talk about it there. The same thing actually is necessary with good quality personal care products. You need to know where it originated. You need to know how it was processed, and you need to know when it was initially made and brought in. And then you need to test those ingredients to validate that they are what they say they are. When it comes to makeup-based ingredients, what does that mean? It means we need to know, well, okay, we're buying a version of this ingredient that is supposed to have the lowest known heavy metal content of any of its competitors. It costs 4 times as much as the toxic garbage that's out there. We're gonna find out, and we're gonna spot check that ingredient, and we're gonna pay for those tests to be done. And we're gonna do that every single time, because our supplier can't be perfect. They can't afford to do all those tests either themselves. If they did, the price that we would be paying for that product would then rise even further. It's just easier for us to take that finished good that has the blended colors in it, test it, and go, yep, exactly what we were expecting to see. It matches the lab sample that was produced over 9 months ago, that we, where we, got our first or second or third sample that we approved, that then passed stability, that has now finally made it to market. And it's a process, but we test it and we validate that we're getting exactly what we paid for. A lot of companies are not doing that, and a lot of consumers, unfortunately, pay the price. And so, yes, it helps to buy from manufacturers that understand supply chain and know what needs to be on that inky label, and know what you do in fact have to declare. It's a little bit scary, because sometimes we find that even I say we, but I mean this from the perspective of my broader history with other brands. You find all kinds of surprises that you just were not expecting based on things. And we learn stuff every day about natural, pure ingredients that actually contain super minute amounts of things like benzyl alcohol. Now, it wasn't added by anybody. It wasn't a chemical that was put into the process. It's simply naturally occurring. And it's no different than going out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and breathing that air on a boat where the engines are shut down, so there's no exhaust. You're still going to be breathing in some things that are naturally occurring that are just not good for you by default. They're super minute quantities, but now there's an opportunity for us to learn and be prepared for that, and even to potentially educate around it. And so it's an ongoing process, and science is the key. It's the glue
Yes.
that keeps it all going. And it's a matter of good science. It's a matter of doing your homework. It's a matter of paying the price, for the testing, and trying to have good relationships with people that know how to do that at a reasonable price. That also helps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Working with people that have a high level of integrity. And so I thought that was fascinating that we can't always necessarily trust what's on the back of the bottle, especially if people aren't working with these manufacturers, because the EU doesn't let anything slip through below 1%, or Canada doesn't necessarily, correct, David? But in America, if
there's no police, the FDA isn't doing any policing action on that front when it comes to a non-OTC product. So the only time where they actually do that kind of testing or do that kind of validation is with a sunscreen, candidly, or a product that is making a structure function claim, like an acne treatment product that contains salicylic acid at a certain documented percentage that has to be legally called out on the label. Now, we have product like that. So we know that our sunscreen has not only been tested by us and by a third party, but also reviewed and evaluated by the FDA to validate that those claims are correct. And it costs a lot of money to bring a sunscreen to market the proper way with all of that functional testing. And it goes way beyond that, because now we have to be also licensed with the FDA to distribute an OTC product. And so there's all kinds of little numbers that we have, and we're subject to inspection and all kinds of things. So it's fascinating. Yeah.
What was it that I was listening to you today with Lily talk about, that they have 6 months, they can say basically anything they want? Sorry, on here, y'all can't see this, but I've got all my crunchy products right there. And so that's what I've been reading and looking. They can say pretty much anything they want on the label. And then if they get caught, they have 6 months to correct that. Is that correct? Please clarify that. I know I just butchered that.
It's a fascinating thing, but and I think that this originates from companies making changes to their formulas, sometimes with good intentions, but they have all this investment in the bottle, which is already printed in thousands and thousands of unit cartons, or hundreds of thousands of unit cartons sitting off to the side. And imagine just sort of having to take all that and throw it away because you just tweak something to make it better. Yeah. Well, the FDA basically came up with this clause that says you have 1 year to update your label to bring it up to spec. Technically, you have 1 year. Is the FDA actually policing that? They are not policing that. They are not doing any policing whatsoever. And so what is happening in the industry? Well, I think it gives companies a sense of, well, nobody's really going to check this, so we can do whatever we want. And I can't tell you that kind of thing is maliciously happening on a regular basis, nor would I ever name a brand that I think is possibly doing that, because I literally have to, I guess I'm more of an optimist and have greater hope that somebody out there has some degree of integrity. But ultimately, if we make changes to our formulas too. We've eliminated ingredients from our formulas, and Mary can tell you exactly what we do when we do it. What happens with the product that you receive, Mary? What do you get with it when we ship it?
You get an additional piece of paper that explains the change that was made.
You got it. You got it. And one of the things that we're doing and even considering doing is just sort of saying and putting a little like asterisk on the bottom of our bottles or the bottom of our boxes. It says, for the latest ingredient updates, please see our website, because our website is something that we have the ability to keep perfectly current. Like on the day that the product starts shipping and the change is made, just so that in the event that card slipped underneath the cardboard box that it's being shipped into, that little fold that you can't see under. And the last thing we want is for somebody to have a question or a concern or a doubt that we're not being transparent. The ultimate place where we can be transparent is online, and that gives us that additional, I guess, option to provide those latest updates, because science continues to change. Things continue to be found that are both good and bad with ingredients or raw materials, and so there's lots of things that will continue to change in our products as we discover those things, because they need to change. We have to stay current, obviously.
Absolutely.
Ladies, this is why Danny and I were talking. You have to deal with companies that you know you can trust. And there's so many ways, as Danny said, that they can just game the system. And if you're not educated, if you're not prepared, if you're not aware, and that's why these are so powerful, because you can feel the energy of what David is sharing and the commitment of Crunchy, that they are a company. There is so much more. There is so much more they do. It's just the tip of the iceberg, but you have to be blown away by all that he shared with us about the steps they go to make sure everything is transparent in the way it is supposed to be.
I just throw in one point of clarification, and that is that one of the reasons that I knew that Crunchy was going to be the right place for me was when I talked to Melanie and interviewed with Melanie. I knew she cared and was sincere about the products she had already developed and only wanted to make them better. That was the part that sort of sold it for me, that made it click. It wasn't, I mean, I wasn't excited about having to move to Florida. I'm now excited about living here, but I wasn't excited about the move. Moving is not something I enjoy, but I was excited about the opportunity to just build on that foundation that she created, because she is sincere and serious about that kind of accuracy. And if there's anyone that gets wound up about finding out that ingredients can be adulterated and things like that, all you got to do is look to the founders of the brand. They're very passionate about doing things right, and that to me was like, okay, they're not faking it. They're not just trying to greenwash consumers, which so many other brands are. And I don't have to be a part of a greenwashing brand. I can be part of something that I can feel good about putting on my daughters, putting on my wife, putting on my grandkids, and that is what it's all about. That's what makes this work for me, and I think it's what makes it work for so many other people that are out there, sort of promoting the Crunchy brand, and it's a great opportunity, and it's a nice home to be at relative to where other places that I could be, where I feel like I would be making compromises, from an ethical perspective that I'm so grateful to not have to make.
Yeah. Well, I am thrilled to death that you were with Crunchy. It's great to have a man. Yeah. I mean, to have a man involved in this that is just, I've never seen anybody so knowledgeable. And as a nurse practitioner who has a clinic, who practices functional medicine, the fact that Melanie's a nurse practitioner is so, it just encouraging to me, because the science is there. And I read their product sheets, and I read all their things on the website. I've never seen a company like it. Mary, I'm grateful to Mary, who brought me on board probably 3 years ago. Yeah. Truly, I promote very few things in my office. There's a couple things, the Air Doctor, a couple of things, Clean Crafted Wine, but very few. And Crunchy has been a game changer for my patients, just people that aren't my patients, just people on here that aren't even my patients who are talking about it. But the integrity is key to me. Mm-hmm. Integrity is key, because people are desperate, and people are literally buying the Kool-Aid, and literally, and they will buy the makeup, right? And so the integrity behind this company, hands down. Absolutely. You have to practice with integrity, because I can tell you it will come back to bite you if you don't. And it's not about the money. If you do the right thing, the money will come, right? If you do the right thing, and I tell my girls in the office this every day, we have sick people coming in every day, and this is about integrity. You don't sell them a truckload of supplements over here, right? You sell them what's going to help them. And it's about integrity.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
David, I'm just blown away with you. I am so thrilled. I think that I know for a fact, because we didn't even get to the 6 things that we need to look for in products, or look out for or be aware of. I think we need to have him back, don't you?
I would love to have him back.
If you all want him back, you need to hit your heart buttons.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hit one heart button on him.
I know he's a busy man.
Yes,
and
he's
I
very
felt very
busy.
lucky to have him. But we could be nothing more than blessed if he would come back again. So I'll leave that up to David. No pressure.
I'd be happy to. If you feel like there's things that we definitely we can add to this conversation, I'd be happy to add to that conversation. There are. I mean, your skin is such a complex organ. It plays such an important role in your overall health and well-being, and even in terms of your self-image and sort of your mental health. There's a component that's linked to what you see in the mirror, right? And you want it to be healthy, and you want to, you want those things to work. And so there's definitely other things that we can talk about, from a routine perspective, and favorite ingredients and all kinds of other things that. We can even link to age, and like where you're at in a particular stage of life, and what you should be maybe focusing on, both from a skincare perspective, and even how sometimes you can, in fact, help your skincare routines through supplementation, because supplementation can, in fact, be linked to good skincare. And so there's other things that we can expand on. So it'd be fun.
And Danny's tribe, as I've mentioned, I mean, like, this is the learning and the movement, and they are active. They are active with sharing and growing. And
yes.
We women, we can do anything. If you give us a cause and we are behind it.
Forget it. There's no stopping
scary.
A bunch of women. Absolutely not. Even one woman. I mean, there's no stopping us.
I mean, I've learned that through personal experience. And I love it. I absolutely, I love knowing that my daughters are capable of doing anything, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And you are capable. Ladies, I want you to know this. You are capable of doing it. Aside from makeup, from skincare, from clean products, you're not broken. You weren't born broken. I know. I turned on irritable bowel syndrome. I turned on lupus. I turned on fibro. I turned on anxiety and depression and itching. But I also turned off every single one of those. And if you weren't born sick, you don't have to live sick. I am living proof of that. Skincare is a part of it. What's at the end of your fork, though, you can use all the crunchy you want. But if your diet is inflammatory, if you're eating horrible food, if you're not sleeping, if you're not exercising, if you're not pooping, if you don't have community, if your stress is through the roof, you can use all the crunchy you want. It's not going to fix the root cause of whatever's going on with you. This is just a piece of it.
Agreed.
And so, but it's a huge piece of it, because what you put on, the largest organ on your body, is huge. This is the largest organ we have, our skin.
It is.
And we detox out of our skin as well. We detox out of our skin, our stool, our urine. This is the big one right here. The health of the gut is directly evident by the health of the skin. My skin was good before I started using crunchy, because I had healed my gut 10 years ago. But now my skin has been taken to a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
Hasn't it? Doesn't my skin look good?
It does.
Looks really good. I know. And it changed 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I also healed the gut. So again, you can slather every charcoal bar, sunscreen, all of this on you, but you've also got to control what's at the end of your fork. And then it all works together. That's the beauty of it. But ladies, you weren't born broken. And gentlemen, I know there's some men on here as well. You weren't born broken, and you can turn around anything. I'm living proof. You can turn anything off that you've turned on.
I want to add something.
What?
I was going to add it before and I got distracted. The fact that David went through all of this stuff helps you appreciate the value of the product. The products are so reasonably priced, and so many times we're like, why does it cost so much? Why? This is why. The testing that they're doing, the quality of the products and the ingredients that they get. If you want to spend nothing on products, you're going to get garbage. But the products, for what they have invested in their education and their research and their testing and their sourcing, they're so valuable.
Yes.
And so you can't have both. You can't have free and clean. You have to invest not only in your supplements and, all the other things, but clean beauty does come at a cost. But fortunately for Crunchy, it is extremely reasonable.
Yes, I agree 150%. And if you guys are interested even in looking at Crunchy or just learning, just reading, there's the website right there and you can click on it. Their website is loaded with so much information, even if you're not ready to spend a penny. Am I right, David?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just learning and going, whoa, I wish I would have known this when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had the ability to, I wish I'd known this when my kids were young. I could have changed the trajectory of that part of their life as well.
Right. It's just one component. And it's such a big component. Women are always saying, I don't know what to do. I don't have a fix for this. How do I replace my toxic makeup? How do I replace I can replace a lot of things, but I don't have a solution. Well, we have a solution. And we're going to have that clinic crawl where they can touch and feel and smell and all that stuff.
That's right. David, you're not here for that. Or you can come in June the 16th.
Bring your wife.
Second annual clinic crawl. Roxanne, if you could pop that up there, it'd be great because you've been so amazing tonight. Clinic crawl at Integrative Family Medicine, Wild and Well. We have got so many vendors there this year and so many functional medicine healthcare providers. Dr. Lori Powell, Dr. Bell, Dr. Amanda Ryden, Teresa Greco, The Body Benefit, Dr. Deering's going to be there, Dr. Kazuli. I mean, good Lord. And then every supplement vendor known to man, Scout and Cellar, Clean Crafted Wine, Crunchy Makeup. I mean, the supplement store, everything. And so we are all about lifting each other up. Integrated Family Medicine is. And last year I started this clinic crawl to try to support the people in our complex that are new business owners, functional medicine providers. So this year is going to be great. And you're going to get a firsthand deep dive, not necessarily deep dive into Crunchy, but because it's crazy out there. Last year, Crunchy was the #1 booth. I felt terrible for her because she had a line a mile long wanting to learn about.
Amazing. I can't.
That's awesome.
We'll be prepared this year for sure. We gotta get all the sources.
Yeah, we got it. So
sounds like a great event.
David, I appreciate you so much. And I mean, more than you'll ever know. And let's bring him back. Let's talk about other things.
Yeah. Like what particular ingredients in our products that he thinks are the rock star ingredients.
That's exactly right. What to look for.
What make our skin glowing and beautiful and the 6 steps that we need to take.
6 steps. That's right.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the invite, and it has been a lot of fun to be with both of you and with your kind audience and with Roxanne helping here on the front side with the banners and everything. It's been
Roxanne, man, you were a rock star. Let's give her some love tonight. I had no idea she was going to be sharing all this. So thank you. And crunchy.com/Danny Williamson or crunchy.com. I mean, I just Danny Williamson and huge fan. We appreciate you, David. Have a fabulous night.